Wangûi has a background in art and design. Her interest in African architecture, spirituality, culture, and tribes inspires her unique biophilic designs. As a green building consultant, she integrates African architecture, cultural heritage, and biophilic design to promote eco-conscious living and reconnect humanity with nature. We were grateful to chat with Wangûi to learn more about her perspective, her approach to biophilic design, and how she integrates this wisdom into her work. What living thing do you feel close affinity with?
What living thing that best represents me or aligns with me? Wow, I think there are quite a number, but I always choose the butterfly because I feel that butterflies are just are. They're beautiful. They're not afraid of expressing their beauty. They just exist in ease in nature, and I like the fact that they don't live for too long. They just enjoy their short time here, being beautiful, taking the nectar, flying away, sometimes landing on my hand, on my shoulder. It represents freedom to me, it represents beauty, because freedom doesn't have to be tied to, so much toughness. I love softness, I love warmness, I love colors, and I want to embody more of that in my life. And just butterflies just give me that feeling that, yeah, this is who I'd want to be as an animal. And my name means butterfly, and my mom never knew that when naming me. So I think it started from way back. Yeah.
What is your favorite memory in nature?
There are quite a number, but this is still etched in my mind. We took a trip with my girlfriends to Chalbi Desert. So that's northern Kenya. And the thing about the northern side of Kenya is there's so much stereotyping around it. There's so much negative news around it, of bandits, and sometimes, yeah, it's there, but it's been really sold to the media that we are so scared of it. But then that was back in 2021 during COVID. There was so much restrictions. Life was just always in the house. And then the ban was removed, and we were just, guys, we need to travel. So we went to northern Kenya. And let me tell you, I think I can't even explain the feeling that I felt. I felt like I felt God. I don't know how to explain it, especially when we were driving away from Lake Turkana, the blues of the lake and the contrasting desert, like the brown and the blue, and the shimmering of the water. It was so transcendent. It's still etched in my mind. In fact, in the tour car, everybody went silent. Some guys just started crying. Like it was so, I don't know how to put it in words, but it was so beautiful. And this is very interesting because most of us don't see deserts as beautiful spaces. We just feel like nature is the green and the forest. But the desert and the contrast of the desert and the lake is something that has never left me. In fact, when I think about it, I remember those feelings and I feel how transcendent it felt. Yeah.
What got you interested to dive into this line of work involving nature?
I am very inquisitive about everything, and I think I get bored very easily when I'm stuck on one specific role or route. And the beauty of nature is that it's very dynamic. To date, we are still discovering species, we are still discovering plants, fungi, animals. Like there is something new to come across every day, and that newness just makes me thrive. So there's that angle. Then there's also the angle of what even got me to biophilia, the high stress that I was facing when I started working, and just taking breaks away from work and into nature, taking walks around my workplace back then. It made me realize, I realized there's a stretch that I used to really feel relaxed in. And I started digging because I love researching and finding out things. So I came across biophilia and I realized, my God, the feeling that I feel when I'm just seated by the river and my feet are in the water and I just feel like everything is okay, or the feeling that I feel when I'm sleeping and then it starts raining and I just feel like, yes, yes, we should sleep when it rains every day. It should be raining every night, not in the morning when you're going to work. Like I started seeing the science behind it, the researches behind it, the brain information of what's happening and why you're feeling like this, and why we're so connected to nature, and why it's so common to almost every one of us. So, realizing there's a science that backs up these feelings, and also realizing that getting into this life is going to make my life dynamic. Yeah, that just I just dove right into it because it gives me peace, it gives me happiness, it gives me like I'm learning new things, and I love learning new things. I hate dormancy. So yeah, so I could say that
What is biophilia?
biophilia is our inborn love for nature. When you look at most of us, actually, this is just a reality for every one of us. When you look at our ancestors, they evolved in the natural world. They lived in the caves, they lived in the savannah, they lived outside. And after, because of that evolution in nature, where they acquired emotions responses in regards to nature. They knew how to seek prospect and refuge. They knew where to stay, the angles to stay at, so that you can see danger coming or food but still be protected. They knew the colors that meant danger, the colors that meant this is okay, this is peaceful, and everything. And this information is still stored in our brains today. Like, why is there an adrenaline peak when you're seeing the color red? Why are you relaxed when you're seeing the blues? This is something that we have evolved with as humans over time. So biophilia is that innate love for nature that we are all born with, and wanting to connect with nature and the natural systems and animals and pets, just nature in general. Yeah.
What is biophilic design?
So biophilic design is now picking that love that we have for nature and now putting it in the context of the built environment. I'm an interior designer. So now how do I bring this love of nature? How do I bring shapes of nature, forms of nature, processes of nature? Like the way in nature you'll see fractals, repeating patterns at different scales. And looking at that has been proven to reduce our stress levels. How do I bring in fractals? Is it through wallpaper? Is it through art? Is it through the way we arrange the space? When you walk into a forest, there's a lot of complexity, but it's not too complex that it makes you feel like you're losing your mind. It's complex, but in an ordered way. There's a tall tree, there's a short one, there's some shrub, there's a lot of things to say. There's information variety. How do we give our spaces information variety to have the same experience as I'm walking through a forest, and bring that relaxation that I get when I'm just forest bathing? So biophilic design is taking all these attributes, all these patterns of biophilia, all these patterns, shapes, colors, forms, ways of interacting with nature, merging them with culture, and just creating spaces that connect to us and make us healthier and happier.
What are some of the benefits that biophilic design offers?
In terms of benefits of biophilic design, there's a lot. There's a lot of health benefits. As I was mentioning earlier, there's a lot of researches that have shown how you heal faster when you have a view of nature, from surgeries, from illnesses. Just having a view of nature in hospital versus having a concrete view. I mean, it boosts the healing time. It reduces the pain levels. When you look at even selling rates in terms of money, property values are higher when you're in an environment that is biophilic. When you look at even hotels, we pay for the views. You pay for the best views of nature. I mean, when you look at the financial sense of it, yes, people actually do pay for nature, especially people who have really being subjected to this urban life where you have no connection with nature. So these health and well-being benefits, these higher cognitive responses and growth for kids, these creativity and enhanced creativity. Sorry, when you look at even workspaces, there's higher morale within the employees because you're in a space that is well lit. There's plants, there's smells of nature. So the benefits are tremendous. It's just like how you feel when you go to nature. Now bring it to the office, to your home, to wherever building you occupy, to the hospital, to the church. So yeah.
Tell us about how biophilic design can be done through an African lens.
I think when it comes to interpreting biophilic design from an African lens, it's just looking back at taking the attributes, or rather the elements of biophilic design, use of natural shapes and forms. For example, you will find that the shapes of the houses just mimicked the shapes of the landscapes. There was a lot of huts which just mimicked the hills that were, the backdrop of the landscapes. There was a lot of also houses that were shaped in the form of trees, really tall huts, not the circular ones. They just looked like the trees. There's a lot of use of environmental materials, the reeds, the bamboo, what was just already there. There's a lot of use of there's this element of biophilic design which is called evolved human nature relationships, where buildings are not just about the structure, it's also about the connection, the spiritual connection. When you got into spaces, you'd see there was always a space that was connected to the spirit, whether it's a stone that is reflecting some ancestor, or a space that is reflecting God in a way. Like the building is bigger than just materials. So when I look at the main six attributes of biophilic design, I try to look at them from how my ancestors built. Yeah, we used the mud, we used everything that, we didn't, we used materials that were just next to us. And when I look at it from the modern perspective, I'm looking at these materials. Okay, we used the mud, we used the bamboo, we used reeds, we used yeah, let's use that for example. How can we modernize this? How can we use the same materials but in a modern way? How can we enhance? Like for example, there's someone in Kenya who is making blocks for building using agricultural waste and mycelium. And it's just taking the same way we'd take what was just next to us and use that instead of importing things from all over and releasing a lot of carbon in the air. It's just around, it's just using what is around us. Yeah. And I think for different people, let's say in Europe the materials are different, in Africa the materials are different. So the main basis of it is the materials, first of all, and also the culture. When you look at how we build, it was very social. There was a lot of courtyards, there was a lot of connection. Like we lived in a village where the central point was for interaction with people, it was for play, it was for meetings, it was for bringing people together. So even in the design aspect, where is the central place? In these apartments that we are living, we are not even connecting with people because it's just blocks and blocks. And so where's the central place? Where's the place that is calling us together? Because most African homes had courtyards, and also the courtyards were not just a social element, it was also an element of, it was also an architectural element in terms of bringing cool air in, releasing the hot air. So there's quite a lot of detail that gets into that, but I'd say the social and cultural and the material angle is what I try to look at.
What is the biggest challenge biophilic designers face today?
The biggest challenge that implementing biophilic design or advocating for biophilic design that comes up is the fact that most people, because of that lost connection with nature, we have become, I tend to think we have become products of our environment, in terms of we have grown up in concrete, that we have become concretized, if, for lack of a better way of explaining it. We don't see nature as sacred. Life has become very materialistic, capitalistic, and money centered. So it's about, I need to fill up this piece of land and get the maximum amount of money I can get. Who cares about a green space? People need houses. So I think that connection is so severely lost. that speaking to people about nature, yes, people are listening and they're saying, okay, yeah, yeah, that's true. Okay, that's true. But I want maximum profits from my land. If I leave this green space, this could have been a house. So the money angle of how our life or our world is just constructed really makes it difficult to convince that we do not need to fill up or to extract everything to make money. This natural space, this tree is actually important to you. If we kill all the trees, we won't even be here to enjoy the money. So the money angle, the materialistic angle, is quite a challenge to try and get it off from people's minds, especially when you look at some of the economic struggles that we face. You find that most people are not employed. People's mindset is just about money and survival. And trying to bring conversations around nature is like, I need money first. So I think that's the biggest challenge to begin with. And second of all, it's the perception that nature is for rich people. And when you look at Kenya, for example, the leafy suburbs, the high end areas are full of trees. In fact, you can't even see the people who live there because they are nested in trees and jungles. And people have the perception that because those suburbs are the Karens in Nairobi, the Rundas, the Muthaigas, that's where the rich live and full of trees. But when you look at most of the population, the rest of the population, which is the majority, they live in concrete jungles and blocks, and there's that thought that has been created, or mindset that nature is for the rich people. So also trying to show people that nature is for everyone, creating that language is not easy. So I think it's more of a mindset problem. We're having a serious mindset problem in how we view nature and how we have lost the connection to nature, and it makes it a bit difficult in terms of trying to tell someone that you need this. You need connection with nature in your house because that's for the rich, that's luxury. Or no, I need maximum input from this.
Could you give us some tips on how to implement biophilic elements in our home, especially in rental spaces?
Okay. For people living in rental areas and want to connect with nature or to bring nature indoors, I always say it's about the simple things. It doesn't have to go overboard. It doesn't have to be crazily expensive. Sometimes it's just a matter of changing your furniture to have the view of nature instead of just facing it towards the black box, which most of us do. We can align our furniture to nature. We can bring art pieces of nature. We can bring the furniture, can be a velvet green, and the cushions or the throw pillows can be a mustard yellow. The rug can be some, mustard color as well. The coffee table can just be wooden and have that wooden imprint, or can even be stone. When it comes to plants, you can bring in plants indoors. You can bring in artworks of animals, bringing the whole ecosystem inside. When it comes to the light, you can bring in diffused or shapes of nature from the lights, because like my lampshade creates a very nice spiral at the ceiling. And it's not rocket science. It's just very intentional, in being very intentional with what you're picking in your space. Because even the curtains, my curtains are green and gold, a whole tropical vibe on the wall. Or just a painting someone can come, like my friend had on their chimney. We did a whole ship, and it looked like water. It was a mixture of Mount Kenya and a ship sailing, and some Chinese vibe as well, and a waterfall. And you just get into the house, and just looking at that takes you back to moments you've been in nature, and it just soothes you. So it's not rocket science. It's just being very intentional with everything that happens in an interior: the walls, the furniture, the floor, the ceiling, the lighting. Not just Don't just bring normal lighting. Look at lampshades that are creating effects, creating movement in the house and pattern. And Imagine simple things like that just change up your space and you feel like there's something different going on here. Yeah.
Tell us about your upcoming expo.
So last year I was working on a course, and the course is integrating biophilic design, green building, cultured center design, traditional African architecture, and climate action. So in the course, there's interviews with a cultured centered architect, someone in the green building space. We talk about biophilia, we talk about Africa and how we used to build, and it's very interesting. Yeah. So the course was supposed to be launched last year at my talk in the Blue Earth Summit, but that did not happen. So when the trailer for the course came out, it gained a lot of traction, and my friends really reached out to me and said, I think, Vanessa, you should do a launch of this thing. And I didn't feel like doing it, but then they really pushed, and finally I was like, okay, fine, let's do this. We can look for the money, the sponsors to do an event. But as we began that journey, I found so many people connecting to the vision. And one of the people does expos in Kenya and in Africa. And they loved the concept. And they were like, why are you doing a launch for friends? This should be a conference. This should be an expo. This is a conversation that needs to be had in Kenya, in Africa, because this is a way of life that we are craving because of this rush and the concrete, and people are tired. People want to yeah, and nature does that. So, long story short, I found myself actually preparing for an expo. And it's been a very interesting journey. It's not been easy because balancing preparing an event and work and looking for sponsorships, because doing such kind of events for a new company is not easy financially, but it's just been an incredible journey. I've met so many interesting people along the way. And the conference is just about introducing biophilia, because stories are the concept and the foundation of human relationships. I mean, we are storytelling right now. So I want us to have stories around biophilia. I want us to have stories about our connection with nature. I want us to have holistic conversations. The panels have doctors, epidemiologists. We have an epidemiologist seated together with an architect and an interior designer and a psychiatrist and and an African mental health spiritual something. That's one panel. There's a panel with kids talking about their experience with nature because they're in a school that is designed with and in nature. They didn't cut any tree. The same panel has the architects who did that, the client, an interior designer. Like, life is interconnected. Life is holistic. This way of living of you go do your thing there, you go do your thing there, doctors should be here, this one should be here. I just feel like has also really disconnected us, yet we are interconnected, especially through nature. So I want to bring back this way of thinking systemically and interconnectedly, such that you know what you're eating affects you, yeah, where you're living, and the materials that have been used in that building affect you. The doctor can explain that to you. I might be telling you as an interior designer, and you're like, but the doctor didn't say. But the doctor is now telling you the lead that you're smelling, or the lack of light that or that the lack of sunlight or enough sunlight might be affecting your sleeping patterns. I want us to have those conversations. I want us to have conversations about sacredness and sacred spaces in our buildings, the architecture of Bath, creating spaces. There's a panelist who's talking about, Bath and how Bath has become very sterile and detached. And, like, how can we create spaces that are biophilic bath hubs? How can moms deliver, like in Kikuyu culture, which is my tribe. People used to deliver in a space that looked like a dome, and the women will ululate. For a girl it will be 4 ululations, for a boy it will be 5. The reverberation of the ululations and how that affects the mother, that's a study of sound and how it's experienced in a space. Can we create spaces that make birth better? Can we create spaces that make children better when they're learning, that make people heal better, that make people work better? Can we all come together and actually talk about this. Yeah. So that's basically what the expo is about.
What else can we expect to see and experience when attending the expo?
We're also bringing exhibitors who are showcasing materials, people who are making blocks from agricultural waste, people who are making biomimicked materials in Africa, in Kenya, people who are building with rammed earth, the way we used to build, our ancestors built with earth, but now it's on a better technology. It's the same material, same everything, but now we are ramming it. We are adding colors that are natural. So these exhibitors, these panels, we are having storytelling sessions, drumming sessions, African meditation sessions.
Can you tell us a preview of what one of the panels will be about?
There's a friend of mine who is one of the panelists, and she lives in the leafy suburbs that I mentioned, full of big mansions. But for my friend, she lives in a mud house, which she built with her own hands. And she has received, it's called the Garden of Eden. Her home is called the Garden of Eden. She's very spiritual. And when you listen to her speak, on how she sleeps, she can see the moon because the roof is the transparent, the trans, what is it called, it's not completely translucent. Okay, she can see the moon, she can see the stars, she can feel the presence of God, she can hear the owls in the morning, she can hear the birds sing. There's the talk of how you see when you get into cathedrals and you feel this feeling of something is larger than you, because of the way the space has been designed. And when you climb a mountain, and when you get to the top of the mountain, and you get the same feeling. So it's bringing. I think let me leave it at that. I don't want to give too much, but you'll see a lot of it on our socials from next week. You'll see some videos popping up. Let me leave you curious.
What would be your dream project collaboration?
My dream collaboration, first of all, I grew up watching National Geographic. I think you have watched. Yeah.
I love
I
that show.
was obsessed with it. And I have this dream of having not necessarily National Geographic, but something like National Geographic for African architecture. Like, oof, when you go to Ghana, the way they build with soil, oh, the way they put color in their buildings, the way the buildings have these stories and meanings, and it's tied up to tales and folk songs. And I'd love to do documentaries showcasing that. Um, so it's telling the story of African architecture, the houses that are built by women, the communities where it's only women who build, how they connect with each other while building, like how do they come up with the design processes, what's the thought behind it, what's the deepness of the building. Like for example, in the Kikuyu house, which was called the Nyoba, like there is a masculine and feminine perspective of it. And some of these things are so deep. And I read them and I'm like, no, this should be a story. This should be a movie. This is so smart. Yeah. So documentaries like National Geographic, but for African architecture.
What would be your dream project collaboration?
I'd love to partner with Google, and come up with, and also my friend who we have a partnership going on. He's a cultured centered architect. He's actually in my course as well. He was part of the interviews, and we really would love to do data repositories. That means collection of African tribes. Like we have so many tribes in Kenya, 44. That is just Kenya. Think Rwanda, think South Africa, think Zambezi, Zambia, the whole continent. Come up with data repositories that showcase our architecture, our food, our clothing. Like, I want to give tribute to our ancestors. We had beautiful lives before colonization and all the pain that happened. We were kings and queens, and we had amazing food and amazing architecture and books. And I'd love us to have repositories so that the next generations that come, they have somewhere to refer to, because every time I'm looking for information, it's such a struggle. And for how long are we going to keep complaining that we can't find information? Can we start making something, Can we start creating things that are going to be stored for the future?
What are the cards for life?
Basically, as I was saying, cards for life are cards that help you think, be, and do like nature. Because, I mean, nature is proven. Is it 60 billion years plus of evolution? It's a tested library. Like, we do not need to invent anything. If you want to, as an engineer, if you want to come up with a building that is very structurally sound and integral, and you look to nature, look at a blade of grass when there's winds and storms, it just bends and then it will come back. Can you study the grass and understand how it's not breaking, how it's just bending? Can we use that and create buildings in places that have earthquakes using that same dynamic? Why do we need to think so much out of the box, yet we have something that can guide us? Yeah. So basically, the cards, it's the same thing. The relationships that we have as humans can really, really, really be made better by just observing nature. I was telling my friends that these days I'm a bit more calmer and more relaxed because I'm very, but because of having so much nature around me, so many plants, especially the ones that grow, like the some that are growing in water, I can see how slowly the roots are taking the time to grow. And I ask myself, why are you constantly rushing? I mean, everything else is chill. What's the rush? Like, just observing nature just does something to you. Um, and the cards do the same thing. So the cards have looked at how nature does, how nature is, and the dynamic forces of nature. Taken that, of course, not all of them, most of them, taken that, and then now the cards help you think through that.
Give us an example of how they work.
For example, as I was saying, if you have a problem and we are trying to solve it out, we are doing a personal inquiry. I will take the doing card, I will take the being card, and I will take the dynamic card. For example, the being card talks about serendipity, and it says, good fortune is found on new paths. Make time for someone new or somewhere new. Be in nature without a goal. Change route and take the road less traveled. If you're having an issue of maybe control, like, how can we look at nature and how serendipitous it is? It just is. It doesn't force things. It makes space and time for new things. When you look at the doing card, there's a doing card here which I just pulled out randomly. It's written reconnecting. Life is seeking connection. It needs the freedom to find it. So identify structures of separation and segregation, create freedom for life to move through. This card actually kind of symbolizes what I'm doing with biophilia, like realizing the separation that we have with nature and looking at how nature reconnects. You just see how nature reconnects when you don't even bother it. It just flows back to itself. If it's the mycelium, they just get back together. The trees, they get back together. There's nothing you're doing as humans, and it just reconnects. How can we bring this relationship in this way of doing in our lives? And the cards guide you, because at the back there's action points of how to be able to create reconnection in your life. So from an inner perspective, from an outer perspective.
What are the benefits you've seen or experienced from them?
It helps people to even be vulnerable. The cards have a way, the writing on the cards have a way of connecting to you. Everybody, no matter what card you pull, because it's usually random, it just connects to you. I've never understood if it's you connecting to the card. Is it your mind playing some placebo? I don't know, but I think it's because we are inherently nature, and this is how nature is. You just connect to it. People are vulnerable. They see how, oh my god, just sitting and observing nature helps them sit and observe their life, helps them journal, helps them deal with issues, and helps them think systemically. It's about doing, being and looking at the dynamics. For example, there's a dynamic of composting. You'll find a lot of composting in nature where things die and they compost and they create space for new beginnings. Some of the things we're struggling with in life, some of them will be a process where things are dying so that new things can come up. And helping people to think like this just helps them to relax and realize, oh my God, I don't need to stress over this ending. It actually could be just compost for a new beginning. So it's very deep. But when you're on the ground and we're actually doing the sessions, whether it's a group session or a personal session, or even a session with companies where they want to change the way of thinking into more systemic and nature-based thinking, it really gets, you really get to get the flow when you're in the space with the cards themselves.
How can someone get started with the cards?
It depends with what we are doing because there are several exercises, and it's not me who pulls them, it's the person who pulls them. They can decide to do it randomly because it's a deck of like 70 something cards. You can decide to do it randomly, or you can decide to sit down and have a look at the cards and see what you resonate with. But most people like to do it serendipitously, and they just want to chance, and then it ends up being the best thing that they did. Like the last session I did, oh, the lady left there feeling, it's posted on my Instagram, she left there feeling like the answer to her question, she actually solved the question that she was asking. Because I'm not a therapist, I'm just guiding you, I'm facilitating you to think like nature, to solve your problem. And she chose the cards randomly, and weirdly it's what she had been going through, and what was really stressing her. So yeah, so sometimes you can pick two cards, especially if the group is not large. If you're two of us, we can pick two cards, from the different sets, the dynamic, the doing, and the being. But when the group is large, it can get a bit too crazy because everyone is giving off this energy, and you need time with everyone.
What are some of your fears and worries, as well as your hopes and dreams for the natural world?
My fears and worries in matters environment, in matters nature, is this capitalistic way of life continuing. And despite us, nature lovers, me, you, and all the people who are trying to push for this, despite us trying, the capitalist and the materialism wins, uh, because honestly, it's just a dead life. I have felt it. I have felt that feeling of going to work and you don't want to, passing through the city and the smoke is just, oh, you just feel like, why do I have to pass through here? Why does my town have to be like this? Why is it so dirty? Why are there plastic bottles that are just jamming in the drainage systems, and then when it rains it's now flooded because people threw plastic bottles? Like, my fears is that people might not listen to this message, and this life continues, and it becomes like what I see in sci-fi movies, which I don't like watching, where the world is just one big desert, all the trees died, and just one seed was left with someone who is being hunted. Oh, that's my biggest fear, because what kind of a life is that? But my biggest hope is that I can, especially with the expo process, I've gotten in touch with so many people who have reached out and they're saying, "Oh my God, Wangûi, thank you for creating this. I thought I was just alone in this feeling. I thought that, it's just me who's weird, feeling like we need our culture, we need nature. I keep telling people how I love nature. They look at me like I'm weird." I have met so many people who have told me that line. And I'm realizing we are so many of us. It's just that everyone is nested in their space because there's no space that has been created where you can expressively say this obsession or love or connection you have with nature without looking like you're crazy. So the hope is that this feeling will spread out with the conversations, with the awareness, with the storytelling, and the moment, because all my friends I have influenced all of them. They have plants, their houses are different now. They just talk about nature. People who used to think I'm weird now are doing the same thing. Sometimes they even give me more information and I'm like, I didn't know that. So it's spreading onto people. And my hope is that just by one person sharing, they affect the other and the other, and we all awaken to the importance of nature.
What is your happy place in nature?
My happy place in nature, first of all, it's my parents' home, because the land, like, there's grass. When I go home, I eat from outside. I take my food, sit on the grass outside and eat from there, finish my food, sleep on the grass, look at the clouds and just sleep. I love a place where I can step on and it's not dirty, it's safe. There are no I'm scared of insects as much as I love nature. Like I can be safe and sleep on grass. There's that, and places that have water, especially waterfalls. It's like they cleanse you. I have felt this a lot when I go to Karura. I go to Karura a lot. It's a forest next to me. Um, it's there because of Wangari Maathai, who I'm really trying to walk in her footsteps. She really championed for nature in Kenya and really changed Kenya in matters nature and ensuring trees were not cut. She won the Nobel Peace Prize. Her story is beautiful, and I really aspire to be the next Wangari Maathai in a different way. But whenever I go to Karura, I always give thanks to her for all this work and struggle that she did to ensure even the forest, because it was supposed to be sold out and built up. Would never have this today. But when I walk through Karura and I get to the waterfall area, even before the waterfall, the streams that you pass by, the sound of water, it just calms me. I think it's because our body is like 70% water. I think it does something to us. Because when I sit next to the waterfall, I swear, Natalie, I feel lighter. I just feel like everything has been taken away. So I like water, places that are close to water, places I can sit next to water and I'm safe, and of course where I can step on grass and lie on grass and sleep there.